My name is Burton White, and our group was given Magellan's circumnavigation of the globe. I wanted to go over the topic of what actually happened during this voyage and the purpose around it because in high school I remember being taught that Magellan was the one that circumnavigated the globe, but in reality it was actually his survivors that made it back. In the late 1400s, a great new age of European exploration began, led by the Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian sailors. In Europe, spices like cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg were worth their weight in gold in the Far East. Whoever controlled their trade was guaranteed immense wealth. Because of this time in history, these spices were a big deal. By 1518, the route to the so-called Spice Islands was dominated by Portugal and Spain, and they wanted a route of its own. This is where Ferdinand Magellan came in. He was a brilliant navigator who spent many years sailing the Indian Ocean. However, he had fallen out with the King of Portugal and now offered a bold plan to his rival, King Charles I of Spain. Magellan believed it was possible to sail around the New World and reach the Spice Islands from the east. Since contrary to popular myths, it was widely accepted that the Earth was round, which is also kind of where this whole voyage ties in, and the purpose of it was not only to get to the Spice Islands, but to also prove the theory of the Earth being a sphere. Whereas today I feel like a lot of people actually think that the Earth is flat and that the Spanish expedition was fake. King Charles accepted Magellan's proposal and helped him assemble an expedition with 270 crew and 5 ships total. Throughout this voyage, none of the ships made it back except for one of them. A lot had issues and they sunk. One of them even turned around and came back. So the fleet officially set sail in 1519 and reached the site of Rio de Janeiro in modern Brazil. Here the men traded with local tribes, exchanging simple objects such as metal fishhooks and playing cards for fresh food and water. They set sail again, and Magellan discovered a 350-mile strait, which now actually bears his name. Through the far ocean, there was a sea that seemed so calm that he named it Mar Pacifico, which meant the peaceful sea, and today we know it as the Pacific Ocean, which was actually far bigger than they estimated. This caused the crew to run out of food and water, so 19 men actually ended up dying after 99 days at sea. They finally reached the Philippines, which they were able to feast on bananas and coconuts after all those days being out of food and water. With the help of Magellan's translator, they were able to sail to Cebu, where Magellan was murdered and ambushed about 30 of his crew. So there was not a lot of people left. Magellan was gone. So the crew actually decided to just take it upon themselves and continue the search for the Spice Islands. And they finally reached their destination. That is today part of what we know as Indonesia. They traded everything they had left and they set sail for the long voyage home, and only 18 of the original 270 men made it back. All in all, there was a now conclusive proof that the planet was a sphere, and the size was much greater than they ever could have expected. And it wasn't for another 58 years until an Englishman made his own voyage around the Earth and further emphasized Magellan's voyage. Thank you.
My name is Alora Rollins, and I'm going to be talking about the significance and importance of the expedition by Magellan. This expedition started on September 20th, 1519, when he set sail from Spain in an effort to find spices from the west. This was because whoever controlled the spices from the east had guaranteed wealth because of the amount that the spices were worth. The whole point of the expedition was to find a new route, a quicker route to the spices. In this expedition, Magellan himself was killed on a battle due to this voyage, but the expedition went on to prove that the world was much larger than had previously been imagined, and it could be circled by the sea. He established the first route to the east that had involved sailing to the west. This voyage lasted about 3 years before finishing. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie Bragg and I will be discussing the account of Magellan and his voyage. So I will be going over the historical significance of our primary source for this week, as well as how Magellan's journey started a new era in medieval history. If you know anything about Magellan, you probably know him as the first man to sail around the world. Although he didn't actually sail in a complete circle around the globe, his bravery and his ambition allowed him to make revolutionary discoveries and change the way people in his time viewed the world. So my group's primary source is actually transcribed from the journal of a pilot who experienced this voyage firsthand. Therefore, it's complete with specific locations and dates, detailed discoveries, and several hardships encountered by the sailors that were on the voyage. This source is valuable to us because it doesn't just emphasize Magellan and the sailors' accomplishments, but it gives an account of their hard work and endurance during the journey too. It's mentioned that the men ran out of food and came close to starvation several times. Lives were put at risk for the sake of this voyage, and some were even sacrificed. However, this did not stop the explorers from venturing into the unknown. Magellan's voyage and the voyages of other explorers set off a series of new adventures that changed the world as people knew it. Magellan made history by proving that the world isn't so small after all.